Duelo a Garotazos. Idea strand 66. Cut off heads of Seth's followers. Night of battle, dividing the eye. Idea strand 68. Eye of horse will not fall to Seth's rage. Idea strand 69. Horse brings Osiris was Seth snatched. Idea strand 70 through 71. Deceased rules mounds of Seth and Horus. Horus conquers Seth. Idea strand 72. Arms of Horus and Seth united. Eye of Horus is whole. Deceased's right hand supports sky and left hand supports earth. Idea strand 75. Seth is beheaded. Idea strand 76. Deceased takes Seth's eye. Horus heals left eye. Eye of Horus is whole. Idea strand 77. Ra crowns deceased king as Horus and sets his two divine eyes. As mentioned, it seems possible that the pharaohs were explaining the operation of lambda lifestyles with narrative meta symbols relating to three events. First, the battles between Seth and Horus in the Island of Fire as the competition between protein production of Ci and Crow. Number two, the theft of the fire of Seth, snatching the eye, signifying Ci snatching the OR1 first, capturing the entire operator, stopping Crow, and simulating its own synthesis. And three, the ascendancy of either the left arm of Seth or the right arm of Horus. This is the lysogeny versus the lytic cycle. In relation to these ideas, we can begin to understand additional signs. The mansion of the six correspond to the three left and the three right operator sequences, O1 and O2. This battleground of gods is also the island of fire of the lambda genome. Although Seth was the eye breaker and a robber, when he was in possession of the left eye, the reversion of the eye to Horus results in Seth's warring against the double lying, the thymine dimer, or the DNA damage caused by UV irradiation that results in the SOS response and excision of the prophet. The deceased sun god's penetration into the whole cell activates break repair induced replication, while ssDNA activates DNA repair and REC-A protein. REC-A cleaves the LEX-A repressor protein or apopus, allowing de-repression of the LEX-A regulon of 42 genes. The injured eye is now whole with the operator sequence in the possession of Horus or Crow protein production. Further, the idea of the deceased never being inert, of the deceased veiling the limpness of the inert one, and of covering up what I found missing suggests conquest over the inertness or inactivity of genes repressed by Ci on the left-hand side, including those of the lambda prophets or Osiris. As Thoth, which is the RNA polymerase with his 42 books, representative of the 42 depressed genes, the deceased heals the sacred eye in the house of the double lion. In the Isis chapter of the Book of the Dead, the deceased states, I am supplied with the books of Thoth, and I have bought them to enable me to pass through the god Acre, who dwelleth in Set. Acre is representative of the double lion. The deceased then references that he has copied that what is right and true, a reference to DNA transcription. Budge notes that Thoth represents the left eye of Ra, or the winter half of the year, and the black eye of Horus in the pyramid text. Of the rising king Uranus, it is said, Thou hast seized the two eyes of Horus, the white eye and the black eye, and thou hast carried them off and set them in front of thee, and they gave light to thy face. The deceased sun god is over the mansion of the sixth, or the whole eye of Horus. Thoth copies what is right and true as the polymerase, enabling transcription of the word of DNA instruction of the recombinant sun god. The mobile elements of the deceased inserted into the incoming lambda genome. Another name for the mansion of the six in the two conclaves. Conclave is from the Latin representing camera, conclave, meaning room with key. For example, Roman Catholic cardinals meet in a private room to elect the Pope. Relative to the rivalry of the Seth and Horus, conclave refers to the secret place where the kingship of Horus or Seth is determined. That is, Crow versus CI production, the recombinant lineage versus the human lineage, the white eye versus the black eye. The coffin text reinforces idea of triumph over Seth and the enthronement of Horus, suggesting Horus is on the throne of DNA. Thoth states to Horus that he gives you vindication in the two conclaves and joy in the two Aneds. From a genetic viewpoint, this is true because Thoth is associated with the de-repression of 42 genes and the activation of Rec-A that cleaves CI, allowing the kingship of Horus, Crow, and transcription of the recombinant species. Thoth is in charge of what is carried out for the deceased. That is, recombinant transcription and replication. So, currently we have decoded Seth equals the CI or the C1 protein, which really is the lysogeny pathway, and we have Horus equaling the Crow protein, which is the lysis pathway. So, okay, that's good to know. The mansion of six, the island of fire, battleground of gods, and the two conclaves all equal 3 left and 3 right operator sequences of lambda genome. The third seat on the eye. Idea strand 90. The C sits on the eye as the third. When the cell is damaged by UV radiation, the SOS response activates Rec-A protein and the enzyme destroys CI. This allows Crow to beat CI to the binding. Crow would then bind the right-hand end of the lambda genome in the inverse manner, 3, then 2, then 1. The coffin text 49 states that the eye of Horus is complete. In coffin text 279, you eat the cucumbers of the two mysterious mansions. Coffin text 1181 states, I am he who sits on the eye of Horus as the third. My protection from you is the protection of Thoth. Coffin text 1071 states, I am sitting on the eye of Horus as the first of the 3. Coffin text 277 states, I have sat down with the eye of Horus at the head of the three who gives orders among the gods in the affairs of Thoth. Thus, the deceased as crow sits on the third operator's site, and then, beating Ci to the binding because of the Rec A destruction of Ci. The 42 books of Thoth. Thoth's 42 books of knowledge signify the de-repression of the 42 genes of the Lex A Regulon, along with the activation of Rec A that cleaves Ci. Also of interest, Clemens Exaladrines notes that the books of Thoth were 42 in number, divided into 6 classes. These books enable the dead king to pass through the god Acre, a reference to the double lion or Thymene Dimer. In hour 1 of the Amduat, 42 gods line the upper register and 42 deities line the lower register of the path, and possible representation of the 42 de-repressed genes of the incoming recombinant sun god, and the 42 repressed genes of the resident prophet Osiris, or the lower register. In chapter 125 of the Tibetan Recession, the deceased states, I know the name of the 42 gods of those who are with you in the hall of justice, who live on those who cherish evil and who gulp down their blood on that day of the reckoning of the characters in the presence of the Winnifer. Thoth, as the RNA polymerase, is also linked to the representation of the 42 repressed gene that create the divine Horus child. The new species of the deceased becomes. More proof for this idea can be found in the full version of the coffin text 335, which states the deceased restores the sacred eye and Thoth raises the hair from the eye of Ra. So we have currently the 42 books of Thoth equal the 42 de-repressed genes by SOS response. The Falcon Hieroglyph. In the early creation account, the rivalry between Seth and Horus resulted in Seth wounding the face of Horus, who lost the light of his right eye. Horus' right eye was the sun and his left eye was the moon. The Falcon Hieroglyph designates the name of Horus, which transliterated fully is Heru, meaning the distant one. However, the etymology of Heru is also connected to Hari, meaning one who is above or over. We might take time to mean Horus above or over Seth. The name also occurs in many compounds such as HRSM3T3UWY, meaning Horus, uniter of the two lands, which we might take to mean the left land or arm, which is Seth, and the right land or arm, which is Horus, or the lambda genome, the genetic control system regulating lysogeny versus lytic replication. After all, land implies the ground from which life grows, and in this case, the text indicates humans grew from Seth's left eye, from Seth's eye, genome, cell, or land. Seth is the god who killed Osiris, that is, allowed lysogeny or prophet state of Osiris, bringing death into the world. Seth, like Horus, is distant or a god apart. When the Egyptians adopted Seth as a local god, they referred to him as Seth gives salvation and Seth causes to live. When Seth is reconciled with Horus, he does give salvation For the deceased, transformation results from the function of Horus's whole eye. That is, both lands, both arms of the land of Genome under the control of Crow, which is Horus, since both operator sequences, or the two knots of Elephantine, OR and OL, were meant for Horus.